Extra Time on Tip FM, powered by Munster Solar, your local solar experts, delivering clean, cost-effective energy solutions for a brighter tomorrow. See munstersolar.ie.
Hello, good evening and welcome to another edition of Extra Time. It's a bank holiday, so we're here on a Tuesday evening and we're here till 8 o'clock. We'd love to hear from you. Our text number is 083 311 3311. We're also on WhatsApp, same number, 083 311 3311. Lots to talk about tonight, but we'll also be revealing the March winner of the Tip FM Sports Star of the Month Award. This is in association with the Talbot Hotel in Clonmel and Cork Trophies Limited in Care. Lots of great nominations came in over the course of the month. Just to give you the shortlist, if you like. Charlene Maudsley was nominated, captured her third consecutive 400 metre indoor title. Angela McGuigan, captain TU Dublin and their first ever O'Connor Cup victory, which is higher education ladies football. Stephen Tobin was nominated, came in from Carrick Swan. The nominations came in for the Carrick Swan man following his performances with the Tip Seniors and the under-20 hurlers in March. St Joseph's Bursley were also nominated for their All-Ireland Senior C Schools hurling final, beating Colostan Nave Cormac of Offaly 217 to 212. And Cueva Purdue was nominated, Cashel native, scoring 3 goals for the Irish women's hockey team in Chile as they came through a tournament to earn qualification for the 2026 Hockey World Cup. So we'll have a winner for you before we go off air this evening. Those are the shortlist: Charlene Maudsley, Angela McGuigan, Stephen Tobin, St Joseph's Bursley and Cueva Purdue. Let us know what you think. 083 311 3311. Lots to cover on tonight's show. We will get to it in due course, but I'm going to go to the phone lines and say good evening to Ken Hogan. How are you, Ken?
Ron.
It's only 2 weeks away, you know. We'll probably talk about that next week, but we've a lot to reflect on before we get to the action in Semple Stadium on the 19th of April. And the under-20s, 2 wins from 2. And it's a results-based business. But do you think there's more in this team than we've seen yet?
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it, Ron, and I think there's a lot more in this team. It's early doors yet, obviously. We've got to take into account players doing college exams, leaving certs coming up, things like that. We have a 3-week break now. 4 points out of 4 is a fair old return. We didn't hit the ground running against Cork, but got the result, and then went to Dungarvan, obviously, which is never an easy hunting ground for our field. But obviously, there is more to come. There needs to be more to come from this team. We played against a very strong win in the first half, and I can understand how the lads set up in the first half against that breeze. But then in the second half, when we had the breeze behind our back, we still seem to be in the same defensive mode, for want of a better word. And I suppose that led to a little bit of frustration, considering we scored 11 points in the first half against the breeze, Ronan. We only scored 5 in the second half with the breeze.
Okay, conditions are a factor that we need to take into account, and I think you've quietly identified exams, and some of those lads are doing their leaving certs. There's Nina CBS lads who had a long old Harty Cup run. Yeah. But there's always buts. I found it a frustrating second half to watch because yes, we got the win. But had we come out of Waterford, and would it be fair to say that Waterford may well be kicking themselves? They had free, they'd taken off their free taker, they had free to level it at the end. That we've ridden our luck a little bit against Cork and Waterford, and perhaps some shackles need to be thrown off in the remaining games against Limerick and Clare. Yeah,
without a shadow of a doubt. I think, in fairness, I think everyone would acknowledge, I think Brendan mentioned afterwards himself, like that Waterford actually lost the game rather than we winning it, because they had a numerous wides close to the finish, and also the free in front of the goals that young Hartley took. You'd bank on him scoring it. It didn't happen. They'd be frustrated the fact that they did replace their free taker. It was just such a frustrating second half. And then obviously, to be fair to the lads, when we did go down to 14 men, which I thought was a harsh decision looking back on it, but Comerford hit a poor free penalty. Paddy McCormick saved it well. 2 clean sheets for Paddy McCormick, which is great for him. And we held him to a point, and we scored 2 points in that period of 10 minutes when Ewan Murray was off, And again, he was one of our standout players. But I do feel, obviously, they have a coaching system there. Brendan will acknowledge the fact that probably they are defensively set up. They just have to back themselves a little bit more, maybe with more opportunities and more training time in the next 3 weeks. They'll get a little bit more adventurous. But the frustration was obviously that we're setting up very defensively right through. It leaves our forwards, and to be fair to Conor Fitzpatrick, absolutely excellent again. But he was 1 against 3.
I was looking at it. I was looking at it, and I was thinking an inside forward line of Oisín O'Donoghue, Cormac Fitzpatrick, and Stephen Tobin could put the fear of God into most backlines. Yeah.
And then we see the minor game, which you were going to discuss later.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you'd seen it and what your thoughts on it.
The minor game was such a topsy-turvy game, 4-20 to 3-19. Obviously, James Woodlock has that sense of adventure in him. I'm not putting any aspersions on Brendan, because who am I to tell Brendan Cummins about hurling, because obviously he has been down the road and has won an All-Ireland Championship with this team last year. But I do feel that I think the lads will express themselves a little bit more. I think they will go at it a little bit more. I think obviously it's a busy time for players, but definitely scoring 5 points with the breeze, definitely something went amiss as regards our structure and the way we played. And no matter how good a forward you are, if you're 1 against 3, 1 against 4, a lot of the duels you're going to lose simply because you're outnumbered. So I think you mentioned the forward pedigree we have, 2 inside forwards, guys working from the middle of the field, having the runners. I think there's a bit of meddling to be done with the team as well. I think they haven't probably found their exact 15 or their best 20 players yet. And particularly the half-back line. Ewan Murray's had to go back to the half-back line. Hopefully that, that some of the lads on the back line will find a bit of form, and that Ewan could be maybe released to middle of the field, because that's where he's done a lot of his damage at minor and under 20 level, as you well know, for Tip. You
see, I'm looking at the minor result. Tipperary 420, Clare 319. It was thoroughly entertaining, but maybe it wasn't particularly entertaining for Woody and for Connor and the lads on the sideline who were seeing Tip concede 319. Where I'm kind of going with this is that an argument for a more defensive structure to stop yourself conceding a high score like 319? Because 9 times out of 10, when you concede a score like that, you end up losing skies, particularly at underage level.
Yeah, it's open to definitely conjecture, Ronan. I think, obviously Owen Duhan is coming back off the Nina Sibiesque, was out through injury, didn't hit the ground running. I think midfield needs to be, Shane Thierry got a magnificent point near the finish, which gave us a bit of space. But I think overall, we need to dominate the games a little bit more, back ourselves a little bit more, spray the ball down. We obviously are playing out of defence, and that's great. But sometimes, as you see with Limerick, Diarmaid Byrnes, hitting that 60-yard puck down the pitch when it came in so quickly that the Cork defence were caught unawares. Gillane himself was nearly caught unawares. That's why he said he had to flick the ball past. But sometimes the fast ball into the forward line is the recipe. And with Stephen Tobin, Oisín and young Fitzpatrick and Co in there, I think Tip will get. I'm sure Brendan is and his management team are getting the vibes from everybody, including maybe their families, are saying, what's going on here? Why are we so defensive? Why are we not backing ourselves? But of course, the coaching comes into that, and obviously, given the opportunity, Tipperary, I think, will improve. I think they have a great chance of qualifying for a Munster final. And they will be set up well. Brendan Cummins' teams are all set up, and Fintan O'Connor's teams are always set up well, but I think there will be a little bit more adventure in them. We enjoyed their journey last year, and they started off with a loss last year, a home loss against Limerick, but this year I think, as you mentioned, they need to throw the shackles off a little bit more, find their best 15, find the guys that come in and finish the game for them, and I suppose that's a learning process and a learning curve for them. So 4 points, you can't quibble with that, Ronan.
No, I started off by saying it's a results-based business, and if anyone's listening to this, they would kind of be, thinking, what are they cribbing about? You've played twice, won 2, you're top of the table. What's the problem? And I suppose it was just that second half was particularly. I was flummoxed by it, but what do I know? But look, I want to move on to very briefly get your view on the Limerick Cork game at the weekend. Did you see anything there that perhaps you marked down mentally, made a mental note of in advance of our meeting on the 19th of April from a Cork point of view?
Yeah, well, from a Cork point of view, obviously the way they set up, they obviously have gone with Kieran Joyce at full back. So the Darragh O'Leary experiment, whether it's going to happen or not going to happen, we haven't seen him in the last 2 games, Ronan. He had been full back for 5 games in a row. So Kieran Joyce is back there, which I think obviously takes away from their half-back line, because Joyce was a very effective wing-back,
Yeah.
The other thing to remember about the amount of chances that Limerick did create, in fairness to Collins, and he's got a lot of criticism over the years, I thought Patrick Collins played very well. He made 3 point-blank saves. The Limerick goal should have been allowed as well, the one that...
No, it went through his legs or something, yeah.
Yeah, mysteriously disallowed. I think Limerick finished a very strong team. Limerick showed their hand in a big way. They probably had their top 15, 14, anyway, 15 guys on the pitch. Hegarty, Cathal O'Neill, and of course Gillane won a lot of primary ball in the air, huge catches, huge deliveries. So I think that's something for Tip to think about as well. I would have obviously we were looking at Limerick and Cork in a sense, how good are they? Are they invincible? They're not invincible, Ronan.
Yeah, okay, I think that's fair.
We're all Ireland champions. Obviously, there's a big this Tip Limerick Cork game is going to be talked about. The media are going to build it up. It's going to be a huge build up. But no matter what happens, Ronan, in that game for either Cork or Tip, they still have to go out the next Sunday and win their game, whether it's Tip against Waterford, below in Waterford, or Cork against Limerick. So I think there's nothing to fear. I think Cork's back line are still creaking a little bit. I felt they were under serious pressure, conceded 127, could have conceded 330.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that we'll take out of it. But obviously, a couple of guys didn't play. Mark Coleman came into the game. From our situation, obviously, Brian Hayes is still a huge threat up front.
Yeah. I think you can add Connolly to that as well,
Yeah, he's the go-to guy. Yeah. Seamus Harnedy had one of his better games.
I actually think Harnedy may well find himself coming off the bench rather than being a starter the next day from what I saw. He may have a kind of an impact, damning him with faint praise here, Noel McGrath type influence.
Yeah, that's the thing. So they have big decisions to make. Cork have big decisions to make. Ben will have to look at it in a sense. They will still feel, and I sense that a lot of people would still fancy Cork, which I think is good for Tip. They'll fancy Cork coming into this game, which is a great incentive for Tip on their home ground, but it's going to be a fascinating battle, and as Cork and Tip games always are.
Yeah.
Something's going to happen, something's going to ignite, and the game will take off from there, and we can never predict what's going to happen next, for Tip and Cork.
Final question, and we're 2 weeks out, so it might be unfair, but I'll ask it anyway. Liam pulled a rabbit out of the hat a little bit in the way we set up against Cork in the All-Ireland final last July, with the role that Brian O'Mara took up and Willie dropping back, etc., and all those kind of things that played to our strengths. Do you to repeat that? There's no secret about it anymore. Do you expect another rabbit to be pulled from somewhere?
Yeah, I think the coaching prowess of both sets of management teams will be tested and we will discuss that, I'd say, Ronan, post-match, when they say, well, Cork did this, or Tip pulled this out of the hat. I think our players are so adaptable. You see Oisín O'Donoghue playing at half-back, in the last number of league games. So yeah. I think Liam is gearing his team to be ready for every eventuality. And I think players are very versatile now in the sense that they can play in so many positions.
Sam O'Farrell, another one, yeah.
Yeah, that's the hallmark. That's the hallmark of the Tip team. Do you know what I mean? That they can adapt, and also like they have gone behind in a number of games, and they have reacted with composure and in the right manner. So I think this team is becoming battle hardened. But of course, the first round of the championship brings up new challenges, and I'd say from everybody's perspective, we're expecting the weather to get better, the ground to get firmer, hopefully a fine bright day. And let them at it, you know.
Yeah, I can't wait. Ken, I'll go and I'll probably touch base with you next week and see if we've can shed any more ponderables on what's going to be a fascinating afternoon on Sunday the 19th of April. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Ron.
Not at all. That's Ken Hogan joining us there. JJ Kennedy's on the line. JJ, how are you?
Hi, Ronan.
JJ, I'm just keen on your view. If you were to contrast the under-20 performance and the win, I have to stress that, the under-20 win over Waterford and the minor win over Clare. They were very different setups, styles, and, you know, I don't need to ask which one you enjoyed more, but are we over-complicating what might well be the simplest game in the world?
I think there is an element of that all around the place with different teams and so on. And a lot of the punditry tends to focus on that as well. And, you know, stats have become the gospel really with the game, and it's all about, you know, this line moving there and that line moving there someplace else. And usually it's rubbish, most of it. I mean, the game at the end of the day is a pretty basic game. All field games they're fairly simple, and you get the fundamentals right. You do those well, and tactics then do come in. You can't ignore tactics; they are part of it. But you get. I always like that phrase from Brian Cody. You know, that the fundamentals were what you had to get right, and if you do that, you're well on your way to winning a particular game. But we seem to have, particularly the under-20 game down in Galway, and you know, I suppose I'm writing a long time now for the Nationalist, and I have never heard a reaction to a Tipperary victory than I've heard in the last week. I mean, the number of people that are just totally dismayed. For so many people, it felt more like a defeat, I think, because it was such an appalling performance, particularly in the second half, and the way the team approached it. And you have to assume that comes from the management, that they're being told to do that. It just made no sense. There wasn't rhyme nor reason to it, and I think it's quite something when even Ken Hogan is offering criticism of the management on that, albeit in a mild sort of way. It just beggared belief what we saw down in Dungarvan. And
but if the management were sitting in front of me now, they might say, well, hang on a minute now, we're 2 wins from 2. We've won on the road, we've won at home. The conditions were challenging. A lot of these young fellas had busy underage, freshers, whatever else is going on, leaving certs, parties. All those things are factors that perhaps need to be put on the table, and you cut your cloth to what you have. And if you haven't a team firing on all cylinders, then you might perhaps set your team up in such a way as A, to avoid defeat, and B, hopefully sneak a win.
Ronan, please, you know, spare me that, really. Every team, I mean, all these players are living their lives, and they have exams and they have different things going on. There's nothing new about that. That's offering that up as some sort of justification, I think is nonsense, really.
Well, I'm only trying to be balanced, but go on.
I know, and you're not the only one to say that. And, you know, this thing about winning is all that matters, that's the end game. That's totally superficial in my view in this particular case. Because if you go on playing like this, if you continue to play through this championship like this, you're going nowhere. That's the bottom line. And while it was a relief, it was a get out of jail really to get the 4 points. We probably shouldn't have won either of those games, but we did. So you know, there's a kind of a comfort and a get out of jail aspect to it in that. But really, unless the team starts playing to its strengths and playing to its potential, it's not going to go anyplace in this championship. And you know, the sad thing is that while they may not have maybe the star-studded 15 that we had last year. But there is still a hell of a lot of quality in that particular team. And, you look at the forward line. I think forwards are essential in this, because at the end of the day, you win with scores. And, Oisin O'Donoghue, Stephen Tobe and Jamie Ormond, Cormac Fitzpatrick and others, excellent players, and at this level, really impressive players. And yet, you look at the second half, and they're all back, bar Cormac, they're all back inside in the tip half of the field, and the wind behind us. I mean, you're asking about, are we over complicating the game? I mean, that's off the scale as far as tactics are concerned. That's just ridiculous.
Well,
and
I suppose, you and I perhaps come from a similar position on this, in that there's a kind of a Tipperary tradition, and it's something that is important to you as somebody who's been writing about the game for a long, long time, but it's important to a lot of our listeners that Tipperary play a certain way. And I'm just wondering, is that too old-fashioned in a modern game, which has been revolutionised by Paul Kinnerk, has been revolutionised by Derek McGrath, has been revolutionised by Davy Fitzgerald. Lots of managers who approached it in a different way, in a defensive way, and were successful with that. And that maybe we need to just perhaps dispense with a sense of tradition and enter into the modern hurling world.
Do you see Limerick playing with 5 of their forwards back in the defence and just want one person up in the attack? I certainly don't. They will, their half forwards or whatever will drift out to midfield and will help out at half back at a given time, but they're back up at the other end of the field again when it's necessary. So it doesn't. It's not even about tradition. It's just about the basics of the game, and that's what was so refreshing about the Miners then on Friday night. That you had a team that had all the hallmarks of a James Woodlock team. And James, as a player, I suppose, was a guy who just mightn't have been the most gifted hurler ever to represent Tipperary, but in terms of just going at it and competing and taking on his man and so on and putting everything into it, that's the type of player he was, and that's the way his teams play. And we just you watch those young lads, those 16-year-olds on Friday night, and the way they went after the game, they took hits. They had penalty goal going in against them in the very first 2 minutes or whatever. But they just go at it, and they get the ball and they take on their men, and they go for scores and they go for goals, and unlucky not to get 3 or 4 goals in the first half. And that's what you want to see. That's the way you play the game. It has to be attack orientated like that. If you just go back and you defend and do nothing else, well, good luck at it, but you're not going to win the match. You're not going to win championships playing like that. So it's call it, you want to call it traditional play, fine, that's grand. I've no problem with individual tactics, but the basics of the game have to be that you take on the opposition and you play to your strengths, and if you have quality forwards, you have them up in the forward line where they're able to hurt the opposition. And that's what we didn't do with the under-20 hurlers. The Miners did it fantastically, and we had a brilliant game and a brilliant spectacle, and great credit to the lads for the way they performed in it. And that would be the case even if they had lost. They just, and I think, Tipperary fans, Ronan, to my opinion, they often get a bad press, but I think they're very fair. And if they see a Tipperary team that goes out and plays to its strengths and goes at it and gives it everything, then win or lose, they'll applaud them. But they certainly won't applaud what was seen in Dungarvan on Wednesday night.
Did it sadden you?
It did, but if you want to look at the optimistic thing, hopefully lessons can be learned. It's just 2 games into the championship. Remember, we had something similar last year in the first game against Limerick inside in Thurles, where we again played around foolishly with the ball and we gave away terrible scores and we seemed to be set up wrong and we didn't even seem to have the right 15 selected. There was major changes after that game. And of course they corrected it and they went on to win a great All-Ireland. You would hope that something like that. My fear would be that the fact that we have 4 points will offer an excuse or a way out, a way not to change. That'll end up in disaster. They have to recognise that this isn't how you go about things and adjust accordingly. And if they do that, they're in a good position with the 4 points. So they should be going to qualify now at this stage for the Munster final. You'd say they'll certainly be in the top 3 anyway. But they should be going for the Munster final. But it will take the lessons on board and change tack and play the way the team should play.
JJ, as always, thanks for your time. I look forward to chatting to you again next week. Thank you indeed.
Thanks, Ronan.
Not at all. That's JJ Kennedy, and that has provoked quite a reaction, which I'll come to in due course. Tom McGrath is on the line. Good evening to you, Tom. Tom? No, I don't think Tom's there, but I don't know what I'll do. Take a quick break. Back in a second.
Extra time on Tip FM, powered by Munster Solar, your local solar experts, delivering clean, cost-effective energy solutions for a brighter tomorrow. See munstersolar.ie. The Tip FM Sports Star of the Month with the Talbot Hotel Clonmel, multi-award-winning wedding specialists with state-of-the-art leisure facilities and spa, with food served daily.
The Tip FM Sports Star of the Month.
Get your nominations in now.
Yeah, don't forget our text numbers 083 311 3311. Some of the texts have come in are very personalised, and I'm not going to read them out for lots of reasons, but some, just on a general theme. One person says, Tipperary not playing as a team. This is the under-20s not moving the ball well. Too many individual plays. Last Wednesday there's an All-Ireland title there for the winning with those players, but how can you win if you play without forwards? Says one texter, and that's generally a theme that is replicated across a lot of messages we've had tonight. 083 311 3311. Tom McGrath, how are you?
Not bad, Ronan. Sure, you have to be cringe and listen to some of the stuff there, all right, but you're factual.
Did you hear anything that you disagreed with?
No. I mean, the only thing I'd add to it is that if you're going to play a defensive game, for God's sake, play backs then. Don't expect good, top-quality forwards to play as backmen, because they don't make that. Because you sometimes heard in the football thing back on the last few years, that was a forwards tackle, a lazy tackle, a forwards tackle. Forwards are not conditioned to, tackle, defend it. They're in a different sense, there's a backman's way of defending is totally different to a forward's way of defending, and we were blessed to get out of that match the other night. But the other side of this was it's a results-driven game, and kind of you win playing. Do you set out to win a low-scoring match, or do you set out to gamble with a high-scoring match?
Do you think Woodlock gambled on Friday night?
But they played. But that's the way. That's the way he played himself. He kind of went at a bit of flamboyance, I suppose. Really, a bit of spectacular, I suppose. Really, but people get value for their buck then as well. And kind of. But I think it's easier play, and it's a sure way of winning, I think, by playing on the front foot, that you put the ball up to the other end of the field. Jack Charlton, put him under pressure, get the ball up to the other end of the field. You have it up there, and if you have the firepower up there, then you're going to score. But if you get the ball up to the other end and you have a 3-1 situation against you, which was going to come back down to you again, and sort of, Stephen Tobin is a fine hurler, but he's not a wing back,
No.
Doesn't know what they will have an idea,
but I suppose if you pick Stephen Tobin, you pick him because you want him to score 5 points or 6 points like he did the first day. You want him to replicate. And ditto Cormac, and also Oisín. Although Oisín seems to be, I don't know. I don't really know where Oisín's playing at the moment, but he still is chipping in with scores.
He is, yeah. But probably a little bit of freedom won't do him any harm, because I think, those Oisíns and Darren McCarthy's of those, they might find this year a little bit more difficult than last year. That's second year syndrome can be a bit of a challenge, because there'll be an expectation attached to their name now because of their achievements last year. But look, it's a different year, whole different scene, and the other side is you're winning matches, I suppose. That's an important thing, but you like to be winning with a little bit of style too,
Yeah, okay. I suppose the reason I really wanted to talk to you tonight was because it's been a very sobering week as well, I think, for football, particularly underage football in the county. We've lost to Waterford at under 20. we've lost to Waterford at minor level. And I'm not suggesting, and if anyone of my friends in Waterford over the border from where I'm sitting right now are listening to me, this isn't an anti-Waterford thing, but Waterford have hardly been ripping up trees at underage or at senior level. And we're kind of, it is a benchmark that we don't like to perhaps admit to, that Waterford are producing better prepared, better skilled underage football teams than us.
Yeah, well, I suppose they're all the counties to get the turn of groups come, I suppose, and like we probably had reasonable underage there. We'll say for not so much, maybe not this year, but a couple of decent under 20 teams, and the seniors are probably reaping the rewards of that now. But you're not going to stay turning them all the time. But it's not for the want of effort, to be fair. Like, because I've been in Dr. Morris Park different times now. We said matches to be going on there. There's interdivisional stuff starting at under 14s, 15s, 16s. I mean, the work has been put in, but if the material, if you haven't got the material, like, it's very hard to get. Again, go back to what I said. It's a results-driven thing. You can be putting in ferociously hard work, but you won't be getting the results because you haven't got the materials. It's not for the want of effort or that type of stuff, but you are measuring yourself, and your aspiration always is to get to be third in Munster and challenge the big boys then, like. But you like to be getting out of that group, bit like the 20s now, 21s. That was disappointing not to get out of that, but we're probably under pressure from the first night. Again, you had 2 away games, 1 home game, you won your home match, and you didn't get anything on the road, so you're gone out of it. And there's a consolation match now against Limerick to be played. It's on the nights, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's a B final, which is not where any of us want to. It's a playoff for 5th. Yeah,
it's one match really, which like it's cruel calling it that, like. But look, it's another match, but like it's a bit difficult to motivate yourself for that too. But the other side of it is then lads, bit of fighting lads, and if they want to put their hand up maybe for to have a senior boys to have a look at them. Well, so then they go down to Mallow, put in a decent display against Limerick, beat Limerick hopefully, and then sort of see where that brings fellas, because there's pride in fellas too, like, and lads don't just strive to or get driven to Mallow or go to Mallow just for the crack, like.
No, I appreciate that, but you see, what we're always looking is for some sort of umbilical between what a fellow was doing 3 years ago at under 17 level and what a fellow's doing 3 years later after 3 years of coaching and being involved in development squads and high performance. And I'm not so sure that anyone's making any sort of argument that there's progression there.
Yeah, well, what I didn't have time to have a look at is to have a look and see what is the crossover. I mean, how many of we'll say this year's under 20, how many of them were involved with the 17s 3 years ago? Like, have we massive change in personnel from 3 years or even 2 years on? Like, I mean, that's continuity is important too, like. And then it depends. See, there's all sorts of challenges facing the footballers too. Like that. I mean, you have the minor, then you have the Celtic Challenge panel. Like, and there could be 80 players involved between them 2 panels, and I'm sure there's a good share of dual players involved in that. Like, and you'd say, well, do we need to be progressing 80 players together to one age group? Would the football benefit from having some of those as part of their group as well? But look, that's a discussion.
Look, I mean, football has always been and will always be, play to a certain extent, play second fiddle to hurling in this county. It's just the nature of
that's the way it is.
Our DNA. Yeah. That's the way it is. But you're getting it to a stage now where, if you're taking the temperature of football in Tipperary right now, and our seniors had an up and down kind of league, but then lost heavily against Wicklow in the last round, which scuppered any hope they had of getting out of that division. If you were to look at the winter and spring so far this year of football in the county at minor, under 20 and senior, you can't make any coherent argument that there's any sort of green shoots of recovery happening.
No, and I suppose like the best group were the seniors. Like, and there wasn't, maybe it might mean a whole lot of it might need as much expected. I thought that the league for a finish ended up more than respectable, I'd say. It was as much as I saw coming out of the league. 8 points. 8 points was, I'd have settled for it at the start. But like, the thing starts now on at the weekend. But they play Waterford this weekend in a Munster quarter final. The championship starts, like, and there's not, the powers that be to be talking about selling this, and so throwing Armagh playing in Ulster this weekend, and there's not 2 lines written about it in any paper today. Like,
no, not yet.
I mean, we're the first lads starting to talk about it. Like, so kind of.
No, I mean, I like the theme music for the Sunday game is going to play next weekend, which is the start of my summer in my head. Anyway, it kind of fills me with boyhood memories, when you hear that theme music, and I just think it's the heartbeat of the Irish summer, and it is starting next weekend, and it's something to be cherished. Tom, we're going to have to return to this because I suddenly look at the clock and see it's 28.
Just on a second,
yes.
It's a pity it's been the first summer in how many years that Sunday game will happen for Michael Lester isn't around.
Yeah, and you know what? You're quite right. One of the greats, actually, of Irish sports broadcasting in a list of fairly hot, top-heavy names, a thorough gentleman. In the 1 or 2 times I met him, and had no ego, which isn't something you can always say for people in broadcasting. So I would say that is the best compliment I can pay him. He absolutely had no ego and was quite happy to just throw a few grenades into Brawley, Spillane, and let them off, which was great.
Well, they were
self-combustibles. They were.
Yeah, you didn't need much to get them going. But no, he handled them better than most.
Yeah, he did.
And
He was one of the good guys. All right, Tom, I got to fly. Thanks for your time.
Okay, Ronan.
Thanks indeed. Tom McGrath, there's lots we really need to return to maybe later in the year when we have more time. Geraldine Kinane is on the line. How are you, Geraldine?
How are you doing, Ronan?
Give us some good news, will you?
Well, our under-23s had a great win.
Up in the rag, excellent.
On Saturday, actually it was a great day for Tip. We had 4 Tipperary teams out in action, all 4 won. Both our under-15 A's and B's won their Munster finals. Our under-16 B team won the All-Ireland Series, and then our under-23s also won. So the under-23s were playing Dublin in the Glendimplix All-Ireland Championship Round 2. They had drawn against, were playing Waterford. They had drawn against Dublin the week previously, so really needed a win and looked very comfortable throughout. I think they led 10 points to 4 at half time, ended up winning 119-6. So Waterford didn't put up too much of a challenge. I suppose it wasn't the most exciting game. Like I said, they never looked like losing, just kind of went out, got the job done. Probably clicked a bit better in the second half, got some good scores. Grace Maloney got a great goal, with some great points from Maeve Kinane and Ellen Kinane, and Evo Dwyer was on fire as well. So look, a good win for them, and they're back on track. The quick turnaround again, they're playing Kilkenny this Friday evening at 7 o'clock in Kilkenny. Just the venue to be confirmed there tonight, but so a quick turnaround, and obviously bigger tests to come from the likes of Kilkenny, but job done on Saturday.
Is this a squad made up of players who aren't involved in seniors, or is there any crossover?
There's a couple of players that kind of go up and down between the 2 panels, but mainly the bulk of it is girls that aren't involved in the senior, I suppose.
Who would have been in a B team in the past, or a junior team?
Yeah, or just kind of out of minor as well, maybe in the last year or two, and certainly will step up to senior in time. But I suppose a lot of the squad from the minor team that won the All-Ireland 2 years ago, I know the likes of Grace Maloney and them were on a minor team a couple of years ago, got to an All-Ireland semi-final. So a lot of that group of players too, I suppose 20, 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds, well, the Fahy twins as well there as well. So look, it's a good competition, and obviously it's one that you want to do well in. And I think if your second team or your under-23 team is going well, it bodes well for your first team as well. I suppose a big game this weekend.
This is minor, yeah.
Yeah, just want to give them a mention. They're in the All-Ireland semi-final this Saturday against Galway. It's in Castletown Gagan in Westmeath, a bit of an unusual venue, and it throws in at 2 o'clock there on Saturday. I suppose this group have been going well all year, had a great win over Cork early in the year, lost to Kilkenny, bounced back then with wins over Dublin and Limerick, and lost to Galway the last day, but I suppose knew they were through to the semi-final and that they'd be meeting them again. So a massive game this Saturday, and I just want to wish them the very best of luck and ask people to travel. It's a bit of a trek up to Westmeath, but to really travel and get behind this team, because there won't be much in this game, and I think a big sport can make it all different. So that game throws in at 2 o'clock this Saturday.
And when we won that All-Ireland minor a few years ago, it gave such a shot in the arm I think, for you, for everybody involved in Camogie, you know, it was so. It was just so good to see some silverware for so many teams who've had such disappointment, the seniors in particular, over a long time now. But there was underage disappointment as well, and to just get over the line, I just would love to see that replicated again, because it does give such a shot in the arm, and that then leads on to the under-23s. That then leads on to your senior panel as well. It's
100%, and you see it in clubs. I mean, there's so many people putting huge work in, whether it's coaching teams, managing teams, and volunteering, administrating at club level, at development level, at county squads, at development squads, the hours and the time that goes in. And I think it just gives everyone a boost when you win in All Ireland like that. And it's just so hard to win. And I suppose we're always, with Tipperary, no more so like Cork and Kilkenny and Galway, we're always thereabouts. But at the end of the day, there's only one winner. So it is so hard to win the whole thing out. And, you know, like you said, definitely that minor win gave a huge boost. You know, it would be great if this minor team even could win on Saturday and get back to an All-Ireland final. It would be fantastic.
Castletown Gig, never heard of it, so there's always an education talking to you, Joe. All right. Enjoy your trip. Talk to you next week. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's Ger Kinane, PRO of the County Camogie Board. We're going to change sports altogether now and go to rugby. The AIL had its final weekend of the season, and so the regular season, if you like, has come to a close. Defeats for Cashel at home to Shannon. Defeat for Nina Ormond on the road to Old Belvedere, but Clonmel were on the road up to Ballyclare. Joe Winston's with me. How are you, Joe?
How are you, Ronan?
I know you're under pressure. I know you're on your way to a match, but a great win on the road for Clonmel. It was a game they had to win to maintain top spot. If you look back on the 18 games as a whole, Joe, 4 defeats, some got away from you, but you've got to be pleased with that season, as it, you know, it's not over yet. We'll talk about what's to come, but you know, I think you need to reflect on those 18 games.
Oh yeah, I mean, we finished top of the table. Any other season, that would mean we would be promoted up to what was to be, which would be a fabulous achievement in the space of 10 years, probably less than 10 years. Gone from being a junior club in Munster to a well-established senior AIL club nowadays. So we're very pleased with how the season has gone. We're improving all the time, and even better, we've got quite a young team that can only get better. That's often been an issue for you, in that some fellas, you know, you've nurtured them over the years, and they get to a stage where they go to college, they go to university, they go to a university that has an AIL team, and it's hard to hold on to them. And you know, life gets in the way. Fellas go and live in Dublin, and fellas go live away, and they're not coming down for training all the time. But you do seem to have held on to a nucleus of players in the last few years, and fellas who are very, very happy to play the rugby with Clonmel. Yeah, we have a number of lads who are in college in either Cork or Limerick, and they'll travel back for training, and I mean, most nights this season we've had 30 plus training, which is fabulous, you know. I remember before seeing 30 training, but they come and go. But this year it's been steady. Anything under 30, and you're wondering who's missing. Yeah. So, and that's great credit to the coaches and the assistant coaches that they've kept the lads interested in, and an awful lot of lads are getting a chance. I mean, how would you describe the mood in the club? And I mean that globally. Very good. Well, I mean, we're looked on as a progressive club. If you look at the facilities that we have here now, we've 3 full pitches. We've got a half a training pitch. We've just converted the old soccer pitches to one half of a 4G pitch, because this year we had to travel out of town to a lot of 4G pitches just to get training in because of the weather. We've upgraded the lights. We're going to be extending the changing room. So we're very progressive, and we're getting great support from the town and the supporters who are all weighing in behind us. Yeah, they are every Saturday that you're there. So now what comes next is the playoffs, and because you finished top of the division, you will have a home playoff against Dolphin, who, let's be honest, proved too much for you the last time you met them. Yeah. I mean, the different team. Now, we lost to them early in the season, but they seem to have improved from the end of January onwards. They're on a winning run, and they looked very good against us. Now, I was pleased with the fact that we hung in there, and there was only a couple of mistakes at the end, denied us picking up anything out of the game. but we were missing a couple of players, but that wasn't an excuse for losing. But we'll give it a go. As I say, Dolphin, they're an established senior club, you know.
Yeah, but you've got the possibility of winning. I know you won a Munster plate this year, but this is a big prize now if you were to win the Division 3 title.
Yeah, they say next season it'll be 2B South and 2B North, so we'll be playing much the same teams next season again. But it will be that bit harder to get up to 2A. You'll have the top 2 teams playing off in each division, whereas, like at the moment, it's the top 4. So there's going to be a little bit of a loss of impetus if you're mid-table and you know you're not going to get into the top 2.
Joe,
the top 4 that always worked.
You've got to go prepare a team for an 8 o'clock kickoff, so I'll let you go, and thanks for your time.
Lovely. Thanks, Ron. And
Take it
care.
easy.
Bye-bye.
That's Joe Winston from Clonmel Rugby Club. They go into that playoff, so their season keeps going, but the season has come to a league end for Nina and for Cashel. David Byrnes on the line. How are you, David?
I'm good, Ronan. How are you?
Irish Grand National, always hard to pick a winner, but the punters seem to have picked a winner this year. It was a great roar in Fairyhouse yesterday. It seemed like half of Fairyhouse was on it.
I'd say if everyone in Fairyhouse was on it, more than likely, with the roar that went up after a soldier in Milan jumped the last. Brilliant winner of the National, and a well-executed plan as well by Connections. Emmett Mullins, Donna Myler gave it a peach of a ride, and owned by Paul Byrne. And look, he won a very good bumper at Punchestown, and the form of that bumper was very strong going into the race. Inexperience was the only worry going into the big race yesterday, but there was never any worry. Like, with a circuit to go, you could call him a winner a long way out, and he was a really, really brilliant winner of the World Sports Irish Grand National yesterday.
Yeah, and good to see the crowds there as well. It's such an Easter Monday tradition, you know, in Ireland, and the Fairyhouse Festival is well established, I think. But I'm interested when you reference the bumper that he won, because that's not always the best form guide to follow if you're looking for something to win something like a national, or am I wrong?
Well, look, it's not, but look, they knew what they had. Connections were very, very well aware of what they had, and I think the form of that particular bumper was really, really strong. And look, at the form had been franked, and look, they skipped the hurdle campaign. Normally a horse wins a bumper, he goes on, runs in a maiden hurdle, and goes into novice hurdle company. They skipped all that campaign with him, and they've minded him, and they've taken their time. And I think really the training performance by him at Mullins, he's really becoming a trainer that we know as a man that can just lay out a horse from a long way out, and he's well able to deliver in the big day. And he did that again yesterday with this horse, and he's a horse that has got a big, big future, and certainly he'll be a very exciting chaser for next year. This horse that won the National yesterday, he possibly could even be good enough maybe in 12 months' time to be considered for a Gold Cup at Cheltenham. Okay,
because he obviously has the distance, he has the staying, I don't know whether he'd have the Gold Cup speed required, time will tell. But while we're on the subject of Nationals, next weekend is such a brilliant weekend of sport. You've got the golf in Augusta, you've got the start of the Sunday game, and you've got Aintree.
You have got Aintree, and it's always a fabulous spectacle, and we're going to know the final declarations tomorrow morning. We'll have 34 lining up in the big race, and 6 reserves, but I Am Maximus is currently the favourite, running at 7-1, and Grangeclare West second in the betting. JP McMahon's got a big chance in the big race. He's got Jaguar and Morocco 10-1 and 12-1, and he's got plenty of big chances in the race. Oscar's Brother, I think that's going to be a fascinating runner in the race on Saturday. It's another owned by JP McManus, currently around a 16-1. That'll be my each-way selection for the race on Saturday. I think it's got a big chance, and I think that was purchased earlier on in the year by JP McManus, and again, I think that's enough a lovely mark, and at 16-1 looks fair, but it's a cracking race, the Grand National. It looks really open this year, very competitive, but as I said, looking at the JP McManus entries in the race, at least, is certainly going to have a big chance, you feel, and I think that's Oscar's Brother. I think that will be the one that will come in for plenty of support leading up to the big race at 4 o'clock on Saturday.
I was interested when I spoke to Brian Atchison of Robcore Racing, broadcasted last week on the show, and his point to me was that once Cheltenham finished, all their attention turned to Aintree, and they're not. I wouldn't have thought they're particularly comparable meetings, but possibly they are, because you think of some great chases that are on, the Melling Chase, for example, as opposed to the lottery of the handicap of a Grand National. Am I underplaying Aintree as a significant event from sort of the blue ribbon horses in racing, in to a certain extent.
Well, yeah, but like you've got to look, Ronan, at the entries that we've got for Aintree over the weekend. Like a lot of these runners that we have in the big races were runners at Cheltenham, and we've got the Gold Cup second. He's going to be lining up Django Bay at Aintree this weekend. We've got we've got plenty of the big runners lining up that would have taken their chance at Cheltenham. So I think there's a lovely gap between the two meetings, and those that decide not to go for Aintree for the 3 days of the festival, those then will be holding back for the final push for the National Hunt season, which of course will be Punchestown in a couple of weeks' time. So I really do think that a lot of people like to have their winners very much around Aintree as well, and they consider that every bit as maybe not to the same level of having a winner at Cheltenham, but for those that definitely own National Hunt horses, there's certainly, I wouldn't mind having a winner around Aintree over the 3 days. And as I said, there's certainly some brilliant racing to look forward to all getting underway on Thursday.
Your day will come, David. Your day will come. Oscar's brother.
About that, Ronan, I'm not sure, but we can dream and hope.
Well, anyway, Oscar's brother, David Byrnes, told you here at 7:54 p.m. on Tuesday the 7th of April. Talk to you soon, my friend. Thanks for that.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Oscar's brother, write it down. Just before I go to my last guest, just to let you know that the winner of the Tip FM Sports Star of the Month for March, we had some great nominations: Charlene Maudsley, Angela McGuigan, Stephen Tobin, said Joseph Spursley, but delighted to announce that the winner is Cueva Purdue, who is a Cashel native, scored 3 goals for the Irish women's hockey team in Chile, and they won that tournament and now qualify for the 2026 Hockey World Cup. So Cueva Purdue performing on an international stage. And many congratulations to her. Our text number is 083 311 3311. And if you see something that you want to think is worthy of a nomination in the month of April, just send a nomination to sportstar@tipfm.com. That's sportstar@tipfm.com. Barry Ryan's on the line. How are you, Barry?
How are you, Ronan?
I was looking forward to having a bumper discussion with you on sort of Peak Villa against Clonmel Town. That didn't happen. And I don't know, the reasons why that game didn't take place is not really where I'm going with this, but is there an issue, an evolving issue, with availability of referees that we probably need to address?
Yeah, look, I don't think the game was called off around referees.
No, I don't think that one was, but there have been issues in the past, in recent weeks, with referee availability, and I'm just wondering, have we got to a point where there's more matches than there are referees?
Yes, without a shadow of a doubt. I think anyone involved in the DSDL, I said it several times, we've been blessed down through the years to have people like Paddy Keane, Michael Freiberg, John Tehan for many a year, Billy O'Donoghue stay going until, as in, we've had brilliant service from, I would say, brilliant referees. John Lyons over a long
John
period
Maguire's
of
at
time.
it a long time,
John
and he's still a
Maguire's
young
at
fella.
long,
yeah.
Like I remember being a schoolboy with people like John Maguire and John Lyons refereeing the games and stuff like that. They've given incredible service, but there hasn't been a whole batch of new young referees. Mitch Corrigan has come in and has been really, really good in recent years as well, but we haven't had loads of fresh blood, and I mean, that was a problem that's evolving and coming a long time. So there need to be an initiative to somehow entice referees into the game?
Well, it's a problem in all sports. I mean, you got to look at what sort of safeguards are in place to prevent them getting abuse. I don't think it's as bad as it would have been many years ago. I do think that there's a maturity in junior football now when it comes to...
I think that's fair.
Yeah,
I think that's fair, and I think we have a very good crop of managers in the league and stuff as well, in terms of, I think even you go to a game now, you see very little interaction between officials and the dugouts.
Yeah, and I think people need have grasped the realisation that if we don't have refs, we don't have games. If you don't have games, you have no sport. And players recognise that, and managers more so than others. Let's dip into Division 1. How's that panning out? Wins for Bancha Celtic. It is brilliant. A draw for Bancha Celtic against a draw for Tiptown against Galway, and a win for the Wilderness against Powerstown.
So Willies now are in the box seat. If they win their game at the weekend, home to Ballingarry, they'll be champions. So those draws at the weekend by their competitors have teed it up for them to go and win it now. But that might not be so straightforward either. I fancy them to do it, but with what that division has thrown up over the last 12 months, God only knows, but they've put themselves in a brilliant position now to go and win it. And look, I think they'd be good value for it as well. They had a great run in the cups and stuff early in the season and stuff as well. They've been doing brilliant work over there, developing the facilities. They put a hell of a lot of work into everything over there, and I think it will be just reward to see them back in the Premier Division.
You see, if you look at their results, 7 wins, 5 draws, 1 loss, that doesn't yell or scream promotion form. But that just says more about the division and how competitive it is.
100%. Like, I've had this conversation with people that Clonmel Town are going to find it very difficult to go and win that division and come back up. It's a different challenge. Most of the games are played at 11 o'clock in the morning, and instead of going to places like Clonmel Celtic and playing on a carpet and going to Kerr Park or whatever, you're going to places where there's nothing easy down in Ballingarry. They're competitive, they're strong, they're a really good side. You're going to Bancha, you're going to Galvalley.
Redmondstown to Powerstown, yeah.
Yeah, every week you're going to a team. Like, it's almost like there's a real even spread up. At the start of the year, you're genuinely saying 5 teams could win this division. Whereas in the Premier League, you're looking at 2 teams could win it.
No, I think that's very fair. And like you've Bancha, who you never know what you're going to get. You can get some brilliance from them, and then you can get, when some of their players aren't available to them, they can ship scores that you weren't expecting. It is a fascinating, and it'll be interesting with Clonmel going one division and one way and the Wilderness replacing them. Yeah,
that's something we probably never thought we'd be saying on the show. I know, but Willies are there in merit, and unfortunately Clonmel Town are going down on merit as well. They have been the worst team this season, and it's going to have to take their medicine. But I think it might be a great opportunity to bring through younger players and cut their teeth in that division. And if they have to be there for more than one season, it might not be the worst thing in the world either.
Absolutely. Barry, thanks for your time. Lots to talk about next week. Thanks for you indeed.
Thanks very much, Ron.
Not at all. That is all we have time for. That's Barry Ryan joining us there. That's all we have time for here this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. Ian O'Connor produced. We'll be back with you next Monday night. Good night and good luck.